Welcome to the Extra Mile podcast for bar exam takers. There are no traffic jams along the Extra Mile when you're studying for your bar exam. And now, your host, Jackson Mummy, owner of the Celebration Bar Review.
Well, hey everybody, welcome to episode 209 of the Extra Mile podcast for bar exam takers. This is your host, Jackson Mummy. Glad to have you with us and hope everyone is recovering. Those of you that have been through the July 2018 bar exams, you know what I mean about recovery. For those of you who are friends and family of July 2018 bar takers, well, you definitely want some recovery time as well. If you're taking the bar exam in 2019, we're glad to have you with us as we restart the engines and begin the journey towards those exams. In today's episode of the podcast, we're going to take a look back at the July 2018 exam. I'm going to share with you some comments that I shared with our students right at the end of the exam in a live Q&A webinar that I did with my co-host, Kelly Perkins. You might remember her from episode 207. Kelly will be joining me and we'll be talking to our students about the early feedback from the July exams. Then I'll come back on a little bit more updated, give you some additional information that we've discovered since we did that first recording right after the exams and before today's episode came out. So stick around for that. If this is your first time on the podcast with us, welcome. Glad to have you with us. We've been doing these for several years now, and we have quite a library built up for these podcasts. If you want to watch today's episode on video, you can do that by going to celebrationbarreview.com/209. That's 209. If you prefer to listen to the podcast episode, you can do that on Apple iTunes or on iHeartRadio or on Spotify or a lot of other places where we're syndicated. And you'll see in the show notes, we've got lots of links and information as well. And on our video page, we've got those show notes for you also. Now, if you'd like to go back and check out some of our previous episodes, we've got all of them on our website in the library. If you go to celebrationbarreview.com, click on the link at the top of the page for podcast, you'll see all of the episodes going back to number 1, along with the show notes, so be sure to check that out. And there are a couple of episodes that I want to direct your attention to if you were a July bar taker. We have, over the years, obviously, been through the cycle of bar exams many, many times on this podcast, and a couple of my favorite episodes for right after the exam. Episode 156 is Should You Post-Mortem Your Exam? This is a message about whether or not it makes sense or if it's helpful or useful to re-examine the exam after you're done. I think you might be surprised at some of the answers I've got. You can find that podcast at celebrationbarreview.com/156. So I encourage you to check that one out. Another one that I did a little more recently is episode 190. This is called The Hero's Journey, and it actually takes a look at the classical journey of the hero in literature and mythology and stories, and it compares it to the journey of the bar taker. And part 1 is the hero's journey leading to the big test, and part 2 is the journey after the test. And so in episode 190, I talked about the hero's journey home, which was really, I thought, quite appropriate after the bar exam. So you can check that episode out. I like those 2 episodes a lot. Now, if you're going to be taking the bar exam in 2019, in addition to welcoming you, I also want to invite you to join me this Thursday, that would be August 2nd, at 7 p.m. Eastern, for a free live webinar. It's titled, How to Make the Next Bar Exam Your Last Bar Exam. This is a look at the powerful, proven way to pass. We're going to take you step by step through what successful students have done to prepare for the bar exam. I'll share case studies with you. I'll show you specifically what you need to do. I'll even leave you with your next best step when we're all done to show you exactly what you want to do. It's 90 minutes and it's absolutely free, and I think you're going to love it. Now, in order to attend, you do have to register in advance, and you can do that in one of a couple of different ways. You can check it out on our show notes on the video or audio page, or you can go to celebrationbarreview.com/webinar. That's /webinar to register. And if Thursday, the 2nd of August, doesn't work for you or that time isn't convenient for you, you'll also see a box where you can register for the on-demand version of the same material. Same great information. The only difference is I won't be live for Q&A, but you'll be able to send your questions to me personally via email, and I'll respond promptly. So whether you watch live or you watch on demand, Up to you, but it's great information, and I really encourage you to check it out. Again, Thursday, August 2nd, 7 p.m. is our live version, but on demand anytime. Just make sure you get registered and jump into that. All right. Well, with those notes in mind, what I want to do now is jump into a brief excerpt from the live Q&A webinar that Kelly and I do with our students each week. We did this right after the exam, so literally it was a first cut, the information that we were hearing hot off the presses. When we're done with that clip, I'll come back to update that just a little bit on some additional comments we've received since we recorded, and kind of tell you where we think we are as we begin to head into the 2019 exams. So let's take a minute now and watch this video in which we talk about the July 2018 bar exam recap. I want to just share with you a little bit, because we know we've got a lot of 2019 bar takers, and there's always some curiosity about what was tested on the exams in the last test. Now, remember, this is first cut. Other than Florida, where we've actually seen the essays, we do not see the questions in any other jurisdiction for some period of time. So we're relying on what people are telling us, and we try to corroborate this from multiple sources. So we're reasonably certain, but clearly there could be things that are wrong. So on the UBE, which is, of course, 30 some jurisdictions, there are 6 essays and 2 performance tests. The 6 essays, at least as we understand them, included the following subjects: con law, corporations. There was a wills trust. I'm not entirely clear if it was trusts and wills. It seems like it was. There was a contracts question. There was a UCC, I believe Article 9 it would be, so secure transactions, and an evidence question. So that's what we heard on the UBE, and I'm not going to go into much detail. I just want to give you the broad outlines of this. We have put some information on the Facebook group, and we'll have more, obviously, as we go along. I can tell you that one of the performance tests, I'm going to screw this up. One of the performance tests was a weird one in its structure. It was a formatting kind of test, which we've now seen twice in the last 2 years, much more about the formatting than anything else, I think. And then we had a persuasive task to a legal audience. I think that's right. Dang.
You're
Am I
right.
right about that? Okay.
Yep. It was, prosecutors reply to a motion for a new trial.
Okay. So that one seemed pretty traditional, but the formatting one, we got a lot of reaction to. There was another one, I want to say a year and a half, 2 years ago, that was also kind of a weird format where they gave you the format and you had to kind of just follow it. It seemed a lot from what we're hearing that was what this one was like. So we'll see. We didn't get a lot of reaction to the topics on the UBE. I mean, nobody, typically if there's a really bad sort of an outlier question, we'll hear about it very frequently and very fast from a lot of people. I did not get much of that. Now, we may see some here in the post-mortems in just a minute, but those were the subjects there. Second jurisdiction to talk about, I guess, would be California. Again, first takes in California. We've got 5 essays there and 1 performance test. And the first essay was a contracts Article 2 between merchants question, anticipatory repudiation. Second question was a California evidence question. This is significant versus a federal model rules of rules of evidence, but it was California evidence, so that was interesting. Question 3 was an ethics question, and California tests their own rules. However, this time they actually specifically said California and the ABA model rules, which is something we had not seen. We think that's significant because California is actually making a boatload of changes to their ethics rules this November. So we're actually working on new materials and a new lecture for California ethics. We're probably ahead of the game. I doubt if it'll be tested in February, but we want to be in advance of that. So it was a pure straight up ethics question. Then in the afternoon, the first question was federal con law. Con law was everywhere. I gotta tell you, I don't know what's up with these bar examiners. I don't know why any bar examiner wants to test con law these days, because I don't even know what the Constitution says anymore, or certainly how it's going to be interpreted. So if it were me, I would have stayed away from all of it. But, well, no, everybody wanted to talk about con law this year. So we had con law in the UBE, we had con law in California, we had con law in Florida. Oh, my God, everywhere. All right. And then question 5 was a very cookie cutter community property question. I mean, there's a bunch of assets, decide who gets what. So there you go. Then the performance test in California, which is not an MPT, but in the same 90-minute format, was a persuasive document to a legal audience. The feedback I got was nothing particularly surprising, not difficult, a couple of cases, so not a long library to deal with at all. So that's what we got in California. I thought it was interesting in California that there were no crossover questions, and there was very little that seemed really, really dense. I mean, my personal sense in hearing from California students was that this might be a reaction to the very low pass rate in February. It actually, I hesitate to say this, it actually sounds like a pretty straightforward test. I'm not going to ever say it was easy, but that seems awfully straightforward. I can't remember a California bar that didn't have multiple crossovers and, didn't go into property and trusts and wills. And, when you get contracts and evidence and ethics and con law, I mean, that's, you're getting some pretty straightforward, softballs. So that was, I hope, good news. Bar results come out in November. I want to say November 17th, a week before Thanksgiving in California. So happy Thanksgiving to all of you. Florida essays. Actually, I'm going to stay Florida for just a minute. Let you talk about that when we get to that one. Georgia essays. Georgia, we have 4 essays there. The first one was a wills question. Only in Georgia, we have spouses killing spouses. Nice question. Then we had a torts question, defamation, so kind of a weird tort, and some other claims, I think, there. Then the third question was contracts. This was in UCC. So again, Article 2 popping its head up. And then good old Georgia, they did have a property question. It had to do with an oral versus a written agreement with a tenant, and then some remedies. So we'll see if the examiners decide to describe this as property and non-monetary remedies. That's possible. It seems like it's got that possibility to it. Interesting to me, at least this first take, I'm not hearing people say that there was Georgia civil procedure or federal civil procedure. That's a surprise on that exam. Typically, they do test those subjects, and then they had the 2 MPTs as well. So that's the deal there. In Texas, hey, there's really not a lot to say in Texas. I have seen very little. We may have gotten some information. They just wrapped up yesterday their essays, so I honestly don't know what was tested on the essay part. Their MPT was the persuasive one, not the formatting one. So that was pretty straightforward. So having said all that, how about Florida? That's where you've been living. The Florida exam here for the last couple of days.
I've been working on the contracts one primarily the last couple of days. So the first essay was a contract/ethics question. The second essay was the family law and dependency. It dealt with adoption and things of that nature. And then the third one was, like you said, federal con law.
Go figure.
And then Florida has multiple choice. And of course, based on their constitution, they had Florida Civ Pro, Crim Pro, and then their business entities and evidence.
Yeah. And let me just say that while I don't make predictions, I did talk about all those subjects in my video. So I'm just saying. Dependency was interesting to me, Kelly, because we had never seen this until an exam ago or 2 exams ago. And then suddenly it's popped up now twice out of 3 exams. So we mentioned that in the video going in, and they went back to it. They're obviously excited about that. I think any family law question, my experience is most of our students get pretty excited about that. They like that. Dependency, I think, is manageable. I didn't think that question was horrible by any means. I mean, having looked at it, it's one of those, again, it's the only state where we're actually seeing essays right now. The contracts ethics question was a weird question. Wasn't this one about the lawyer who wins a lotto ticket?
I love this one. This
kind
one
of
was
a real world thing, yeah?
I know this is fresh for you guys, so you're going to think I'm a total jerk for saying that it was an exciting essay to read. But I saw it and just thought, oh, this could happen in real life. Like, this is like, I would have loved a question like this on one of my exams. So I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did. Yeah, there are some sections there, right? You have validity for the 14-year-old, whether they can contract, is it void or voidable, and all of that. You have some kind of attorney's fees that you have to talk about, and then the ethics part, which was like the person saying, "Oh, I'm going to make your life terrible. I know how to draw out, lawsuits. Don't sue me," kind of thing. So I thought it was kind of interesting. The second one, like you said, I think most of our students really like, especially with essay writing, the multiple calls of the questions, so you don't have to worry too much about formatting. So when I saw that, I was kind of relieved. I knew our students would kind of be relieved to have that format set up already for organization. And then the last one was about Seaside, which is close to my hometown in Niceville.
No. Isn't that weird? That was very weird. That's where my home was also. For many years. When we left Celebration for about a decade, we lived up in Seaside. And this is a really weird question. We're going to geek out here for just a minute. For those of you, most of you don't care. There is a
just for you and me, Jackson, right now.
Congress. His name is Matt Gaetz. You might have been hearing about him. He is he's a first-term congressman who is seriously enamored with the President of the United States. And Matt's dad was the chairman of the school board in is it Okaloosa County or Walton County?
Okaloosa County. Maybe, Okaloosa.
Anyway, Matt was a high school debater. I did not coach him, but I coached against him. And then he dated one of my assistant coaches. So I've known Matt for many, many years. And, it was one of those kids you looked at and you said, well, he's going to do political things. Well, anyway, he's a super conservative politician, as you might imagine, in a very conservative area. And so this question that mentions Seaside and talks about this conservative, it's a real weird, like they're writing it about Matt Gaetz, right? It's a very weird question. So I thought that was strange. I mean, typically it's in the, Franklin, or they make up a county or they do something and it's very generic. This one was like, and I thought, okay. So that's the deal. So.
Fun fact, I went to high school with Matt and probably went to school with him from 7th grade on. So we went through awkward stage together. He can't get anything past me. Oh, Matt Gaetz.
There you go. So that's the deal. And a little piece of trivia, one last piece of trivia. If you're familiar with the movie The Truman Show with Jim Carrey that was filmed in Seaside, the Truman House is actually owned by the Gaetz family. So
funny. I didn't know that part of it.
Yeah. Matt never ceased to tell us that. All right. So that's what we heard about it. I see a question here from one of our Georgia students. Have we heard any chatter about the ethical issues in the persuasive MPT? I have not. Have you heard anything?
No.
I don't know that there were. It's possible for sure. I think in MPTs, sometimes there will be an ethical problem. There's less of that in the MPTs than there were in the old California 3-hour performance tests. But it's certainly possible that it was there. We will see MPTs. That release date will come to us in about 6 weeks or so. So it'll be interesting to see. And then we'll get the drafter point sheets as well. And we'll see what the examiners thought about it. So, interesting. I don't know the answer to that. It's always, performance tests are really tough for us to get a feel for because there's so much material and so much information and people come at it from so many different standpoints. So I would say if you saw something that was around ethics and professional responsibility and you wrote about it, that would be awesome. If you didn't, it may not have mattered a whole lot. I mean, I don't think you want to go searching for, problems that aren't there. And certainly post-mortem, don't beat yourself up if you didn't see it. This is one of the reasons post-mortems are hard. I've now set ethical problems in a performance test and 50% of the audience is freaking out going, I didn't see that. Don't worry about it. You can't do anything about it. B, it may or may not be there. We just don't know.
Yeah. So, you're all going to wake up and think about random different things. So just get used to hearing different things for the next couple of days, and then you will go back to real life.
Yeah. So do we have any other post-mortem kinds of comments that you want to share? You've been looking at the chat box?
No, there's no questions.
Okay.
It's just all,
People have just been sharing their chat. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Well, so let me I should probably said this at the beginning for those who are watching. What we do with these webinars is that I post the video only, which doesn't have the chat box on Facebook. So you've been watching for an hour on Facebook. You're like, duh, of course I know that. But you will, if you're subscribed to the webinar, you will get an email a couple hours after we wrap up that will send you the full webinar along with the chat box. So just for future reference, if you want to see the chat box comments, and it's usually pretty lively chat, I would watch the webinar, but we know that there's some people that just want their content straight from us, and that's what the Facebook is that we try to do there. So that's the deal. I do see a note here from Eileen that I properly previewed the UBE. Me. I was pretty sure I did. I wasn't going to say it, but I was pretty sure that was true. And I also got some comments. I've talked to a bunch of California students about the exam. California is always kind of a weird one because of the timing and everything. But now that it's a 2-day test, I get a lot more information. And, the one thing that keeps coming up is people saying, it just didn't seem all that hard to me. And I know that's like we're tiptoeing around it because, remember, this is an absolutely weird, given the pass rate in California, you just don't ever want to say it's an easy exam. But
right. I
am not hearing anyone say to me, oh my God, I was totally surprised. There was this brutal, really complicated, weird off the wall, little, picayune kind of problem. There may have been some of those, but I'm not hearing that. The general reaction coming out of the exam from our California students was really good. I also want to talk about general reaction that I've gotten in emails and posts around the MBE. For the most part, I would say that the students who use the intuitive 90-second method feel really good about it. We had a lot of people wrapping up in 2.5 hours and feeling super good about their responses, feeling very strong. I think one student said something about answers jumping off the page. I saw that and got emails from several people saying that to me. I had a few comments of people feeling like they went too fast. I would tell you, you didn't go too fast if you were staying under 90 seconds. I mean, if you finished a question in 30 seconds, great. If you finished 100 questions in less than an hour and a half, maybe we've got something to talk about going too fast. But I doubt that happened. I would be very surprised if anyone was under an hour and a half. I would guess that most of you went somewhere between an hour and a half and 2.5 hours. And if you're in that range, then you were certainly in our 90-second range, and you should be in pretty good shape. I don't know anyone that walks out of the MBE, Kelly, feeling like, I got it, I know it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just not that kind of a test. But I do think that most people felt pretty good about having done the 90 seconds and feeling like, okay, I got it, I figured it out, and I'm out of here. So I thought there was some good responses there. I also wanted to just point out, I did hear some things about computer issues. There was some people had a weird thing. They tried to copy and paste on their computer in the Exemplify software, and it created something called a strikeout or a crossout effect, where everything you typed, it was trying to cross out or strike out. And I don't know how widespread this was. I don't think it's very widespread, but it did happen in more than one instance that I'm aware of. It continues to be, Exemplify continues to be crappy software that the examiners insist on using. Perhaps they have pictures, or maybe they have audio tapes with Michael Cohen. I don't know. But in any event, it is really not good software, but it's the only choice we've got. And I still think it's better to type than to handwrite when you've got the choice. But you may hear some horror stories coming out about that. Some people had to handwrite. Some people got into the process and abandoned the typing because they were having problems with Exemplify. Also, Exemplify sent out the typical last day email saying, oh, by the way, in case you just bought a brand new MacBook Pro, won't work on that. So Thank you so much. Yeah, really, really wonderful there. I think that, so that was the deal. I would say I like Eileen's idea, new business idea, develop bar exam software. Yeah, you can do it. You just got to get these crazy bar examiners to buy it. Yeah. I think that my overall impression is that the response to the MBE was as positive as I've heard it in a long, long time. I think that we had people in the right space in the right groove. The 90 seconds of selective intuition seemed to be working. I think if it is not working, people would walk out and go, well, that sucked. That's terrible. What are you doing? I did not hear that. I heard the opposite of that. And I heard it over and over and over and over again, all jurisdictions all around the country. When it comes to the essays, it's always a mixed bag. Some people feel really good about their essays. Some don't feel so good. Some feel good about some parts of them, I think, and others feel not so great about other parts of them. But on the whole, I heard a lot of people saying, oh my God, I'm so glad I used the FLA writing method. It made sense to me. I was able to get my essays done on time. I was able to get to the word counts. I was able to talk about the things that seemed to matter. And I didn't feel overwhelmed or confused. A lot of response from folks about the value of their mind maps, that when they went in to write, that they could see the mind maps in their head. They knew what they wanted to write about, and they were confident and comfortable doing that. Now, how does all that translate out? Well, I don't know. If you look at the overall trends, July bar results are always better than February, so that's good news. The bar results for repeat bar takers are never particularly strong. They're always dramatically lower than first-time takers, so you just don't know. But I would say that our students were very well prepared and seemed very confident coming out of the exams. That's my take. Is that what you're hearing as well?
Confident and exhausted. So I hope you guys all.
I don't think anybody left anything. I don't think anybody left anything in reserve. I got the feeling that everybody was really putting it all out there. Kudos to those of you that dressed up for court to go in for the bar. I love that. I heard a lot of comments from people who had used paraliminals either nights before or at breaks, and the resets. I think that was wonderful. I heard some people talking about using the Circle of Excellence and the drop-in videos to kind of get themselves ready. And I think that's really good. So what I want to say, the reason I'm sort of wrapping all that up is to say that to those of you who took the July 2018 exam, I think this is a good time to now put it down. Watch the video I did on Post-Mortems. We'll send that out to you, the link. And then I think I would just rest for a while. I would forget about bar exam, forget about us for a few weeks. We'll be back when it's time. I mean, we'll continue to be here doing our thing. But I really don't know that you will benefit a whole lot now for the next few weeks, thinking or doing or living in the bar exam. I really want you to get out, relax, kind of, let go. I just finished reading a story about Gwyneth Paltrow and Goop, and it reminded me of the consciously uncoupling. I think you need to consciously uncouple for a while and, and give yourself a chance to, Abby, I love you, man. Don't email me. Email June, but
they know you.
Yeah, they really do. There you go. So anyway, so that's the deal. So I want to thank all of you that were July bar takers. Been awesome having you around. I'm looking forward to interviewing many of you when you're successful on the bar exam, and congratulations to all of you on finishing. And for those of you taking the exam in 2019, welcome. You're beginning a journey that will be amazing and wonderful. I hope that you'll be feeling the same way that these July bar takers feel. And so I just want to welcome you and let you know that we're going to do everything to get you ready. So, well, that's what we knew right after the bar exam. And now we've got a little bit of updated information. And I also wanted to share with you some of what our students have said to us since they got home from the exams. So the first thing I want to just elaborate on a bit is in California what these subjects were. As you heard, the first question was contracts, UCC Article 2. We heard a lot about remedies here, so we think that it's probably got a remedies component to it. The second question was a California evidence question. This was Prop 8. It was California crim law. And so the reaction to the question was actually that it was pretty straightforward, but it was testing Prop 8. Nothing different about the ethics question from what we said in the Q&A. The federal con law, I can tell you, was a Commerce Clause question. Privileges and immunities, Article 4. Again, not real surprising in terms of where they went within con law. Probably a bigger surprise that they tested con law. Community property was pretty much the way that you heard that. I don't have a lot more to tell you about the performance test in California. It was persuasive to a legal audience. Seemed to have, I believe, 2 cases in the library some testimony in the file, and may have a little bit more to say about all that, but I think that was the basics of that one. All right. Also wanted to talk to you just a little bit about the MPT, the second MPT. Now, this is the one that would have been given in the UBE and in Georgia. Texas, as you know, did the more traditional MPT, but the second MPT, it was drafting a set of bylaws. One student said to me when I saw it, I initially panicked, but I followed the instructions, which showed me how to set up the bylaws, and it wasn't bad at all, and actually felt pretty good about it. This is an interesting development with the sort of unique drafting component. We've seen this only a couple of times now in the last few years, but we had never seen it prior to maybe 3 years ago. So I think it's something we're going to have to start watching for, these sort of unique one-off kinds of MPTs. Remember that in February of 2018, we had a traditional persuasive memo and objective memo. So it wouldn't surprise me if we go back to that in February of 2019. I think that's all of the specific updates to particular information. California is always a little later because of the time difference, so I wanted to just add that in a bit there. But I also wanted to share with you some additional feedback we got from our students as they sort of got back home and had a chance to deconstruct. And I wanted to share this also because oftentimes I think my team tells me I don't say enough about what people say to us. It's very, very kind and very complimentary. And, it sounds a little bit like we're tooting our own horn. And my point here is not to do that. It's just to share with you kind of where our students seem to be coming out of the test. A Texas student wrote to us, I think you prepped us perfectly. I could see where the conflicts were. I had the law that I needed. I had the analysis, and I had time to spare. That's always good to hear when people think they have enough time on any part of the exam. In Texas, where you've got all kinds of different things, the P&E, the essays, the MPT, and the MBE, having time to spare is a big deal. We got a lot of comments like this one. A student wrote, "Thank you so very much for being supportive in this important endeavor to become a kind and gentle member of the bar. I don't know if I can relax while I wait for the results, but I'm going to try. I feel like taking the bar exam is a milestone because it means I'm one step closer to my goals." And I got a lot of comments from people that are already thinking, oh my God, this waiting period, it's so difficult. And I certainly understand that. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in upcoming episodes. Another student said, I wanted to take this time to thank CBR for the wonderful experience I've had studying and working with you all. There's no comparison between your course and the big box bar reviews. The paraliminals, the mind maps, and the schedule were nothing short of amazing. God knew what he was doing when he put you all in my life at this time. I always say God sends me angels at the perfect time, and he sent me some of the best ones. This particular student said, as you know, I'm going through a really hard time with a family member. And if I was studying with the big box programs, I probably would have quit. But because of you all, I continued to believe and that you supported me. And I feel like the test went really, really well. So that's really nice. A California student wrote to us who'd taken the exam before, and I thought this was interesting. They said, my essays were utterly superior than the ones I wrote in February. The writing style that you gave me helped all the way. They said I was also able to sleep. That allowed me to endure the entire test. Yeah, sleep helps. I was calm and certain that my mind maps, which is a technique that we teach, had put all the law in my genius mind. I felt rich and abundant in legal principles. I made a PowerPoint of my mind maps that I played at high speed each day, and that helped me. It was a really interesting tool. Be excited to see how that works. A Texas student said, the third day is done. That's a 3-day test in Texas. I'm home, and the last day's test files are finally uploaded. There were server issues in Texas. You may have heard about that. But the student said, I finished strong with a sense of peace that I had done good work. It was an incredible feeling, and I feel like I've had an amazing journey. The student also said that during the MBE, they felt like the answers were jumping off the page at them, and that's a wonderful thing to be able to feel. Now, we had encouraged our students to get dressed for going to court to take the bar exam. It's something I've done for a long time. And it's a little odd, I realize. People are like, what? But my view is you're going to work. It's the way you're going to dress for the rest of your life. You might as well start on the day of the bar exam. And so we have a number of our students that do that. And I got some funny notes from people. One person said, the only issue with coming to the bar exam dressed like you're going to work is that from the time you park your car and all the way to the check-in table, people think you're in charge. They miss the fact that the workers all had white shirts and black pants, at least in Florida. So there you go. Several of our students said that they were constantly have people coming up to them saying, why are you having to take the exam? Because they were dressed up. Isn't that funny? Another person wrote plaintively afterwards, my study area is gone. How many hours I sat in that spot. There must be a haiku somewhere in there. It's great. And several people responded to that. With respect to the MBE, got a lot of comments. As you may know, I teach a method of 90-second selective intuition. And students wrote to me about it after the MBE day. And they said, I walked out of the MBE early. And then I spent my entire ride back telling my neighbor how much I enjoyed studying with Celebration. I've been passionately advocating for what you offer. I believe I have my life back. Another student said, your 90-second rule, what can I say? I'm a believer. And then there were lots of pictures of happy, smiling faces, which you hardly ever see at the bar exam. We had a lot of people posting on our Facebook group, great selfies with themselves and other Celebration students. Another student wrote, intuition really, really works. I finished strong with time to spare on the California MBE. Another said, I was done with 50 minutes to spare in the morning and 48 minutes in the afternoon, but I had to stay in the room because in Nebraska, the proctors won't let you go home early. A California MBE student said, I left 30 minutes early and I still took a bathroom break in between with both sessions. Intuition really works. A Florida student said, I want to just thank you for offering the tools, especially the intuition and selective intuition on day 2 of the bar exam. And then they posted a great note. It said, my intuition sent me a note I thought I'd share with you all. And the quote is, told you so, sincerely, your intuition. So there you go. That was pretty cool. And another student said, I'm so thankful I have this tool. I think it literally saved me. We got a lot of comments from students in Georgia and the UB in Florida and California who said, I completed the essays on time, I addressed all the issues, MBEs went well for me. Others wrote, I could go on and on about how grateful my family and I are for you and your wife's gifts to the world. You've radically changed my thinking and thus my life forever for the better. Thank you. That's a very kind statement, and we appreciate that. One student wrote, I'm not making this up, I had fun on the California bar. Well, I'm going to frame that, I'm sure. The essays went very well. The MBE went exactly as I had practiced it. Many students told me that the California exam, in their view, was not hard at all. They weren't expecting it to be that straightforward. You heard me talking about that with Kelly. We think that's an interesting response. It may be a response to the low pass rate in February of 2018, so we'll see. But it certainly sounds like there were no surprises on the California essays, so that was interesting to me. Again, let's see. We got a lot of these kinds of answers. I felt I knew how to answer essays because of the writing style that you teach, which is not issue spotting and IRAC writing. Somebody else said, I am so excited. Your writing style kept me right on track. Thanks so much for the course and the emails. Another Georgia student wrote, thanks for your support and help. I definitely felt better prepared for this exam after completing all the assignments and the practice tests, which were similar to many questions on the real test. Another student wrote to us, your course prepared me to take the test not only from a substantive angle, but from a spiritual and a mental angle. The lectures, the photo reading, and the mind mapping, altogether I think that made the difference. As I was using the intuitive 90-second method on the test, I incorporated the skills that I had learned. As I was reading a particular question, I heard your voice from one of the lectures, which is always a little scary. Don't fight the facts, answer the question, move on to the next question. Never have I felt so empowered. The system was my sword. And as the bar dragon kept approaching, I swung hard with the CBR sword. all the way with your writing style, the 90-second rule, selective intuition, mind map, recall. And then I think that kind of a nice wrap-up comment was from a student that said, I went into this exam more prepared and confident than any time before. I had the positive expectancy that it would be the expression of my ability, and thank you for the method, the tools, and the unwavering support. So you can tell, I mean, they're very, very positive comments from our students, and I didn't selectively edit. I didn't actually have any you're miserable and horrible comments, which I appreciate a lot. So I just want you to know that while you may not be feeling great about the bar, there were lots of people that did all across the country in all of the exams that we teach. And if you feel like you're missing out on something, then maybe we should talk. But I think it was a good exam. I felt like across the country we had good results from people. People felt like the test went well. There were relatively few technical issues. There was an exemplified problem in one jurisdiction where they got started late. There was a leak in a roof at a test center, a couple different test centers. There were some problems at different test centers around the country, which is always unfortunate. But by and large, everyone seemed to have a pretty even-keeled test process. And I also thought it was interesting to hear from some of our past students who've been successful. They wrote and talked to our existing students after the exam, and they were very inspiring and very uplifting, I think, as well. And it was kind of fun. One of our students, Noelle, who we did an interview with earlier, Noelle Vinson, got her Texas Bar membership framed in the mail the day of the exam this year. And she was like, wow, that is really a different experience, isn't it? And then you might remember I did an interview with Jackie Chobel earlier this year, who had passed the UBE. She says, I remember when I was walking in, I tripped, almost twisted my ankle, dumped my coffee and laptop. The way the morning went on that exam was like, this should be the worst that happens to me, just let me pass. And she did. So if you feel like things didn't go great, I want you to know that maybe it went better than you thought, and so be careful about that. And so I encourage you to check out that prior episode about post-mortems. Again, it was episode number 156. So go to celebrationbarreview.com, number 156. And then I want to share with you, just to wrap up, one note came from an Alabama UBE taker who passed. And she said, when my results came in, I got an email from the head of the Alabama bar congratulating me. I broke out crying. My husband thought I must have failed. The wait was brutal, but with celebration it happened. So there you go. So something to look forward to. First results will start to come in early September. I think Missouri, UBE State, is one of the first around September 12th. Florida will be September 17th. We'll dig all the way into November to probably November 17th or so for California and Georgia. And in between, we've got lots of states. So we'll keep you up to date as we go through all of those different jurisdictions and as results come out and as we hear more about the test itself. Well, I hope that gives you some information and gets you excited about what's coming if you're taking the exam in 2019. And I want to just wrap up by reminding you that we've got our free webinar, How to Make the Next Bar Exam Your Last Bar Exam, coming up this Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern. That would be 4 p.m. Pacific time, or on demand. You can register here on the show notes page on our videos, or on the audio show notes page, or by going to celebrationbarreview.com/webinar. It's been great to have you with us today. Thanks so much for being here. Enjoyed it, and we'll be back again next week along the Extra Mile. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thanks for listening to the Extra Mile podcast for bar exam takers at www.celebrationbarreview.com.